What is going on, college basketball fans? And it is time for our official 2023 March Madness bracket predictions. We have been making brackets all year long based on who we think is going to be in the tourney. We finally have our bracket, and I am so hype for March Madness. Make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are new. Daily college basketball March Madness coverage here on the channel. We're going to be streaming later on tonight here on YouTube, making more brackets. Come hang out. Also, join my Dannyology Tournament Challenge group on ESPN Tournament Challenge. You can join by searching up the name in the groups. Dannyology space TC is the name, or you can join by clicking the link in the description. But yeah, guys, I'm ready to get it started. Let's get into our bracket predictions. So our first region, we're going to go region by region. So we'll do the South region first. We do have Alabama as our 1 seed going up against either Texas A&M Corpus Christi or SEMO, aka Southeastern Missouri State, and I think Alabama's got this one. I mean, the SEC regular season champ, the SEC tournament champ. They have been really consistent all year long, and I don't see them losing to a 16 seed right here. Brandon Miller, a lot of weapons he's got there around him. I think Alabama is moving on to the round of 32. Next up, we do have an 8-9 matchup between Maryland and West Virginia. As you guys know, I am a West Virginia fan, and even I can admit this is going to be a 50-50 level matchup, but I am going to take West Virginia. Maybe for some of my own personal bias, maybe. That could play a factor, but I also believe that West Virginia matches up really well. I think that West Virginia has some really good defenders down low in their front court, guys that can get offensive rebounds as well. And guys like Eric Stevenson, I feel like he is a sleeper to maybe take over a game in March Madness and put up like 30 points shooting the three ball. I could also see a guy like Hakeem Hart on Maryland doing a similar thing. Like he could light it up and make like 3-4 threes in a game, and that could really be the difference. But I am going to go with West Virginia. I think that they are the better team, and I think heading into this game, they are going to be hyped up. Give me WVU here to move on. Next up, we do have a 5-12 matchup between San Diego State and Charleston, and I don't know, guys. This one could be a trap. Like, this one could be a trap pick. I think a lot of people are going to go with Charleston here to pick to get the W over San Diego State, but I'm kind of feeling it. I'm going to, too, go with this, and I know San Diego State has some really good defense, some of the best defense in the country, but Charleston is a really solid team, 30-plus wins on the year, and I'm going to rock with Charleston here to move on to the round of 32 and upset 5-seeded San Diego State. These upsets are going to happen. The past like 5-6 years, 5-12 matchups, it's like nearly split down the middle, like 50-50, whether the 12 or the 5 seed wins. 12 over 5s are a lock to happen this year, especially with how strong the 12 seeds are. Give me Charleston here to move on. Next up, we do have Virginia going up against Furman here in this one, and you guys know that I actually really like Furman this year. Like, I think Furman could pull off this upset over Virginia. They have some really good guards. I'm all in on the Paladins, and when I saw that they got matched up against Virginia, I was pretty hype. And I gotta rock with Furman. I'm going with the 12 and the 13 out of the South to upset the 4 and the 5. Charleston versus Furman will meet in the round of 32. One of them will be in the Sweet 16. Next up, we do have Creighton versus NC State, and I'm not going to lie, like, I could see NC State pulling off this victory and being kind of like a big bracket buster to a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people are high on Creighton, not only getting past NC State, but also getting past a team like Baylor in the second round and maybe even Arizona. And I am right there with you guys. Like, I could really see Creighton going on a nice little run this year. I could see them getting as far as the Final Four. But the thing about Creighton is they are very inconsistent, and I could see NC State winning this game. I am going to go with Creighton to win, and the main reason why is because of Ryan Cockburner. Ryan Cockburner, one of the best defensive centers in the country, and I just with DJ Burns, he's a really good post player there for NC State. I just think that he gets locked up, man. I just think that he gets locked up in this one by Ryan Cockburner, and that's going to be a key difference. And even if Traquavion Smith and Jarkel Joyner are going crazy for the Wolfpack, I just think that guys like Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, Ryan Nimhard, they could contradict that and score right back. And Creighton comes out of that one, but I would not be surprised if the Wolfpack wins that matchup, because a lot like 5-12s, 6-11s are also kind of 50-50 when they happen. But I like Creighton in this matchup. It would not surprise me if the Wolfpack won. Next up, we do have Baylor versus UC Santa Barbara, and I was once pretty high on UC Santa Barbara pulling off an upset, but they kind of died down on me. Like, I was kind of surprised that they won their league. I was kind of getting high on UC Irvine, teams like Hawaii. Right now, I'm kind of down on UC Santa Barbara, and I think Baylor is going to get past them here. Baylor is a really good program with a really good head coach in Scott Drew. They got upset in the second round by North Carolina last year as a 1 seed. I think Baylor at least gets past UC Santa Barbara and makes it here to the round of 32. Next up, we do have Missouri versus Utah State, and this is a very good matchup, another one that could go either way. I really like Ashworth there on Utah State. They played really good against San Diego State in the Mountain West Championship game. But then Missouri, they have a lot of really good guards, and I feel like a lot of people are kind of sleeping on Missouri, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take Missouri here to move on. I mean, Demoy Hodge, Kobe Brown, they have some hoopers on that team. Let's not sleep on them. I have Missouri moving on here to the second round. Then we got Arizona versus Princeton, and honestly, I was surprised Princeton beat Yale to get here. I don't see them upsetting Arizona. Give me the Wildcats here to move on. So we have our second round here in our first region, and we have Alabama versus West Virginia. Now, here's the thing. I could actually see West Virginia beating Alabama. It is possible, and maybe that is just because I am a WVU fan and I know a lot about that team. But they have guys like Emmett Matthews, like Trey Mitchell, who are lengthy, tall forwards who could kind of guard Brandon Miller. I'm not going to say that they could stop Brandon Miller, but they could D him up, maybe slow him down a little bit. And West Virginia also has a lot of really good guards. Eric Stevenson, Keedy Johnson. Like, these are really good guys, fifth-year senior guys who I feel like if Eric Stevenson's making his shots, if Seth Wilson off the bench is making his shots, WVU could win this game. I could see it happening. I'm going to pick it in some of my brackets, but not this bracket. Not this bracket. Not my main one. Alabama's too hot of a team. I still think Brandon Miller, he's not going to get locked down. He could get slowed down. And they have other guys as well. I think Noah Clowney could have a good day. I think Bediako down low could be a force in the paint. And their guards are really good, man. Mark Sears, Quinterly, Bradley, like really good guards. I'm going to have Alabama move on here. Then we have Charleston and Furman, and this is a good matchup, man. I mean, Charleston shoots a lot of threes. Furman also another team that shoots a lot of threes and has a really good backcourt. I could see this one going either way. I am going to ride with Charleston here to move on to the Sweet 16, though. Then we got Creighton versus Baylor in our 6 versus 3 matchup, and I have said this a lot. Baylor is very vulnerable when they play a really good big man, and I think Ryan Cockburner could have a day in this one. But also, Baylor has 3 NBA guards. The only thing is they don't play that good of defense sometimes, and it worries me against a team like Creighton. It does worry me against a team like Creighton. I am not going to lie. But I think I'm going to trust Keontae George down the stretch to maybe pull off this W. I do not feel great about this. I can't. No, I can't. I got to go with Creighton here in this matchup. I got to go with Creighton here in this matchup because the matchups that I'm thinking about it, but I also feel like Jalen Bridges, he could play some really good defense on Baylor Shireman. That could shut them down. You know what? I'm going to go with Baylor. That was my initial pick. Thinking about it too much got me thinking Creighton, but then thinking about it a little bit more got me back to Baylor. Give me the Baylor Bears to move on. That one would be a fantastic game. I feel like it would be really close down to the wire. A high-scoring game in the 80s. Give me Baylor, though, to move on. Then we got Missouri versus Arizona. And honestly, I could see Missouri pulling off this upset. I don't know if they have the defense in the front court to be able to stop guys like Turbellis and Ballo, which is the reason I am going to go with Arizona. But I do really like this Missouri team. They have a lot of really good guards. Demoy Hodge, Nate Honor. I mean, it goes on and on. They have a lot of really good guards, and I do really like Dennis Gates, what he's doing there with Mizzou. But Arizona, I'm really high on them. I'm going to have them move on here. Next up, we have Alabama going up against Charleston in a 1 versus 12 matchup. Now, I do think that Charleston could give Alabama a fight, but I don't think Charleston could win this matchup. I got to go with Alabama to the Elite Eight, and when I initially saw this bracket on Selection Sunday, I was on stream. I was like, man, Alabama has a pretty nice path to the Elite Eight. I mean, it's hard to pick them to lose before. I honestly feel like West Virginia gives them the best chance to lose before the Elite Eight. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I see anyone beating them. Next up, we got Baylor going up against Arizona in our 3 versus 2 matchup. I am going to go with Arizona. Like I said before, it was a blessing for Baylor to get past Creighton and Ryan Cockburner. But when Baylor sees two really good big men in Ballo and Turbellis, whenever I've been saying all year that the center position is Baylor's weakness, the front court is their weakness. Yeah, Arizona's, I like the matchup. I like the matchup. Give me Arizona to move on. Then we have Alabama versus Arizona in our 1 versus 2 matchup here. And this is where Arizona's really going to need guys like Chris Kerr, Courtney Ramey, guys like that to step up in this game. I think they do, and I'm going to take Arizona here to win this game. And I know Chris Kerr has that injured shoulder, but he will be playing in this game, and hopefully by the time they get to the Elite Eight, his shoulder is feeling a little bit better to where he can shoot the rock like he has been all season long. And then guys like Turbellis is going to be guarded by Noah Clowney. That is a good matchup. I think Noah Clowney could do a pretty decent job defensively on him, but I think Turbellis wins that matchup for sure. And then Ballo on Badiako. Give me Ballo in that matchup as well. I like Arizona here to the Final Four. Next region, we have our Midwest region. I was very surprised to see Houston get the 2nd overall seed and not Kansas. But I am going to take Houston over Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky was a surprise that they came out of the Horizon League over teams like UW-Milwaukee and Youngstown State. But they made it here. Credit to them, but I don't see them beating Houston here in round 1. Next up, we have a really good matchup between Iowa and Auburn. I'm not a huge fan of Iowa in March Madness, or really a lot of Big Ten teams in March Madness, because they always seem to choke. But between Iowa, I could see them winning this game. The main reason I'm taking Auburn here is they play really good defense, man. Really good defense, and guys like Katie Johnson, Johnny Broome are going to be able to lock up Chris Murray. Like, I have seen Chris Murray this season just have games where he can score like 2 or 4 points. And I feel like against Auburn, a team with really good defensive forwards, yeah, I'm taking Auburn over Iowa, especially because Iowa chokes year after year in March. Okay, next up we do have Miami as our 5 seed going up against Drake as our 12 seed. I definitely feel like this is a sleeper 12 over 5 that not a lot of people are talking about. I feel like a lot of people are high on Miami this year, and I am kind of high on Miami too. I will admit, I am going to take them to defeat the Drake Bulldogs, but I don't know. I could see this upset 100% happening here, especially if Norchad Omier is not playing in March, because he did roll his ankle in the game against Duke. But I'm going to go with Miami. I'm going to go with Miami here. I still think they're a strong team. Really good guard play. Nigel Pack, Isaiah Wong, Jordan Miller. Give me Miami to move on. Next up, we do have Indiana going up against Kent State. I've been pretty high on Kent State all year long, and I could 100% see this happening. We are 100% going to see at least one 13 over a 4, and as you can see, I already picked one in Furman over Virginia, and I could see this one happening too. Honestly, I could see any of them happening except really Iona over UConn. I don't really see that one happening, but other than that, I could see a lot of 13 over 4s happening. I am going to go with Indiana here to move on, though, to the round of 32. I think Trace Jackson Davis, he's going to be too much for Kent State here in this one. Give me Indiana here to move on. I also really like Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's really stepped up in place of the Xavier Johnson absence this season. Next up, we do have Iowa State going up against either the first 4 matchup of Mississippi State or Pitt. And I am going to say that Pitt does win this matchup over Mississippi State. And I'm going to say that Pitt does beat Iowa State. And we get a first 4 team in the round of 32 here. Like I said, 11s over 6s. It happens just like 12 over 5s. You're going to want to pick some 11 over 6s this year, even if they are first 4 matchups. And I like Pitt's guards. I think that they match up really well against a team like Iowa State. And I'm going to take Pitt to move on to the round of 32, beating Mississippi State in the first 4 and then beating Iowa State. It does scare me a little bit because the 6 seeds do seem really strong when you look at it. Iowa State, Creighton, TCU, like these are strong teams. But some upsets are going to happen, and I also really like this Pitt team. Give me Pitt to move on past Gabe Kalisher. Gabe Kalisher, a sleeper to take over a few games in March Madness as well, the way that he's been playing. But I am going to go with Pitt here in this one. Next up, we do have Xavier going up against Kennesaw State as our 14 seed. And this is going to be my biggest upset of the first round. I'm taking Kennesaw State here to beat Xavier. And I was really high on Liberty this year. Really high on Liberty and Darius McGee, on them pulling off an upset or 2 in March Madness. And when Kennesaw State defeated Liberty in their conference championship game, Kennesaw State, I was watching them throughout that tournament. They were looking pretty solid, man. They have a lot of good hoopers. They don't have one star player. They're a more well-rounded team. And we've seen teams like that be able to make runs in March. I mean, Loyola Chicago, they were a well-rounded team. They didn't really have that one star player that carried them. St. Peter's last year, they didn't really have that one star player that carried them. I could see Kennesaw State pulling off this upset. Even though I am a huge fan of Soli Boom, of Colby Jones, Jack Nungy, no Zach Fremantle in this game, this is my main upset right here. I don't think we're going to see a 15 over 2. I think we will see a 14 over 3 this year. I got Kennesaw State. Moving on past Xavier. I do feel like Xavier is overseeded as a 3 seed too. I feel like they should be a 4. That factors into it as well. Next up, we do have Texas A&M going up against Penn State. This, to me, is probably my most anticipated first-round matchup in this entire tournament. I mean, Texas A&M and Penn State, both very hot teams. Both teams lost in their conference championship. Both teams, I feel like, are underseeded. I feel like Texas A&M should be at least a 5. I feel like Penn State should be an 8 or a 9. Both underseeded teams. But one of them has to lose, and I am going to go with, I got to go with Texas A&M. I got to go with Texas A&M here. They have been more consistent all year long, I feel like, than Penn State. It does worry me a little bit, though. I'm going back on my word. I'm taking Penn State. I could regret that because usually your first choice is your right choice. But thinking about it more and more again, has Texas A&M really been the more consistent team all year? Like, they've been the more consistent team in conference play, but out of conference play, I'd say Penn State definitely played better than A&M. Jalen Pickett, he could win that matchup over Wade Taylor. Those are 2 really good star guards. I'm taking Jalen Pickett. Give me Penn State here to move on. And then we got Texas over the toothpaste. Colgate, a strong 15 seed, but I don't see them beating Texas. Texas just won the Big 12 championship in the tournament. They're really hot right now. They have a lot of really good players, a lot of really good forwards. Give me Texas here to move on. Next up, we do have Houston going up against Auburn in our 1 versus 9 seed matchup. And I'm high on Houston, guys. I'm high on Houston. I think Jarris Walker could struggle in this game because of, going to be guarded by Johnny Broome, who's a really good defender. But I think even past that, Marcus Sasser, Jamal Shed, they're going to have really good games here. Robert, he's a nice 3-and-D guy. I mean, I really like this Houston team to go far this year, and I'm taking them over Auburn. In this one, I do think Auburn could hang in there a little bit, especially with Johnny Broome's defense, but I am going to take Houston here in this one. Next up, we do have Miami going up against Indiana in our 5 versus 4 matchup, and this is what worries me a little bit here. Trace Jackson Davis might be going up against Miami's backup big, because if Norchad Omier is not playing in this game, I gotta go with Indiana. I gotta go with Indiana here in this matchup, and even though I do really like this Miami squad and I really like their guards, I gotta go with Indiana because of Norchad Omier not being out. And even with Norchad Omier in, I do think Trace Jackson Davis could have a big day. But on Miami's backup big, that is barbecue chicken down low for TJD. Next up, we do have Pitt going up against Kennesaw State in an 11 versus 14 matchup. And I'm rocking with Kennesaw State, man. Kennesaw State, my big Cinderella here for this run. I feel like they are kind of underrated. Not a lot of people talking about them as a potential team to make a run. 26-8 on the year. I'm liking them, man. I'm liking Kennesaw State right now. Like I said, I was high on Liberty. It could have been Liberty if they could have beat Kennesaw State, but I'm really liking them. They're moving on to the Sweet 16 past Pitt. Next up, we do have Penn State going up against Texas in our 10 versus 2 matchup, and I'm not sure about Timmy Allen. It's looking like Timmy Allen is not going to be able to play for Texas. I don't know if he's going to be able to return. Actually, I need to look that up real quick. All right, so I looked it up. Timmy Allen is listed as day-to-day to return for the NCAA tourney, so I could see him being back for Penn State or maybe waiting till the Sweet 16. Even without Timmy Allen, though, they have a lot of really good bigs. I mean, at small forward, Dylan Mitchell, very athletic guy. There as a freshman, Dylan Dessou, who has been playing great, played a great game against Kansas. Christian Bishop, the transfer from Creighton. Texas has some really good bigs. They also have really good guard play who are going to be able to play good defense on Jalen Pickett. I would assume they put Marcus Carr on him and not Tyrese Hunter, but both of those guards are really good. Sir'Jabari Rice actually would probably come off the bench and defend Jalen Pickett. Sir'Jabari Rice, 6th man of the year in college basketball. Big fan of his, even though as a WVU fan, I don't really like Texas. I really like Sir'Jabari Rice as a player. Texas moves on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we have a 1 versus 4 matchup between Houston and Indiana, and I think this is where Indiana's run comes to an end. Houston's defense, super scrappy. I think they're top 5, probably higher in just total team defense, like advanced analytics, stuff like that, which is great. And I feel like they're going to play scrappy defense. They're going to be able to slow down Trace Jackson Davis, shut down the guards around him. And I like Marcus Sasser's defense on Jalen Hood-Schifino in this game. I think it's going to be a big difference. Give me Houston here to move on to the Elite 8. Next up, we have Kennesaw State going up against Texas in a 14 versus 2. And this is where the Owls' run comes to an end. There's no way I can pick them over Texas, especially because by this point, listed at day-to-day, Timmy Allen should be back. So that's also like just another factor you have to add in. I got Texas here. Moving on. And then we have Houston versus Texas. Battle of the state of Texas here in this one. And the winner goes to Houston, Texas for the Final Four. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm taking Houston here in this matchup. I've been very high on Houston all year long. I think the loss to Memphis, even though they didn't have Marcus Sasser in that game, Marcus Sasser should be back for this game. And, man, I really like Houston here to move on. I think the loss to Memphis might actually have woken them up a little bit. Sometimes it might be good to lose a game right before March Madness, so then you're like, okay, we're focused up now. We know we can lose. We're beatable. We don't want that to happen again, stuff like that. But Jarris Walker, he could have a tough day against some of these Texas bigs, but the good thing about Jarris Walker is he can stretch the floor as a power forward. He can shoot threes. He can take you off the dribble and drive and dunk. He's super athletic. That is why he is a lottery pick in the NBA this year. Really like Jarris Walker on Houston. Houston is going to the Final Four, and they join Arizona in our Final Four so far. So let's go to our East region over here. We have Purdue versus either Texas Southern or FDU. Texas Southern, literally a 14-20 team. I don't think they win this matchup. I do think they win this matchup because they're going up against Farley Dickinson. And Farley Dickinson didn't even win their league championship. Merrimack did win, and the only reason they got in is because of that, 3-year rule, whatever it is, whenever you jump from Division II to Division I. Merrimack ineligible for the tourney. So the two weakest 16 seeds here. Texas Southern beats FDU, but Purdue moves on past them. Then we have Memphis versus FAU. This might be the strongest 8-9 matchup in the tournament. I think it is. A lot of people would say Arkansas, Illinois. I think both those teams are a little bit overseeded, to be honest. I like Memphis, FAU. I think that's the strongest 8-9 matchup. Whoever wins this matchup has a legit shot at beating Purdue in the round of 32. I 100% believe that. And I am going to go with Memphis. They're hot. They just beat Houston in the AAC championship. DeAndre Williams has been cooking. Kendrick Davis has been cooking. I am going to go with Memphis here in this matchup. FAU, a 30-win team out of Conference USA, a really good league with teams that had like UAB, North Texas, really good teams in that league. The FAU was just dominating. And I already picked one Owls team in Kennesaw State. We got another team, Owls and FAU, and I've got to go with Memphis. The way that Memphis is playing, give me the Tigers. Next up, we got Duke versus Oral Roberts, another very popular, I would assume, 12/5 upset pick right here with Max Asmus, midcourt Max, whatever you want to call him, on this Oral Roberts team. It's definitely possible that they could defeat Duke. Duke is coming in as one of the hottest teams in this tournament, though, jumping all the way up, getting a 5 seed, and I think they deserve it, winning the ACC Tournament Championship. They've been playing really good. Guys like Derek Lively protecting the paint, Kyle Flipowski going off at a very efficient rate, Jeremy Roach and Tyrese Proctor as your guards playing fantastic, and that is, I don't know. I got to go with Duke here in this matchup, and I really want to see Max Asmus go on a deep run, man. I really, really want to see it, but I got to go with Duke here in this matchup. I just feel like their bigs match up really good against Connor Vanover. Connor Vanover is a big guy. I don't know if he has much skill to him, though, and thing about Duke is they have amazing athletes, and it's going to be tough for Oral Roberts to get anything going, and they're a hot team right now. I got Duke moving on to round number 2. Next up, we do have Tennessee going up against the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns, and I'm going to go with Louisiana here. I think they have a lot of underrated guards. From what I've seen in the Sun Belt Conference, I am a Marshall Thundering Herd fan as well. So I watched a lot of the Sun Belt Conference this year, and Louisiana has a lot of really good players on that team, and I am going to take Louisiana here to move on past Tennessee, especially without ZZ's Guy Ziegler. He tore his ACL, unfortunately, and I think that hurts him here. I think with Guy Ziegler, I would probably take Tennessee, but I am going to take the Raging Cajuns here to pull off the 13-4 upset. Next up, we do have Kentucky going up against Providence in our 6-11 matchup, and this is the Bryce Hopkins Bowl right here. It's the Bryce Hopkins Bowl going up against this former team, and I could see Providence pulling off this 11-6 upset. Like I said, 11-6. They happen like 50-50. I picked Pitt over Iowa State. I could see NC State Creighton happening as well, but I am going to take Kentucky here. Kentucky, they've been playing pretty good lately. It depends on which Kentucky team shows up. Whereas Providence, they have been playing pretty bad as of late. And Providence, I would not sleep on them just because they've been playing bad lately. They have hoopers on that team. Jared Bynum, Noah Carter, or Devin Carter, Bryce Hopkins, Ed Croswell. Really good players. Ed Croswell could play some good defense on Oscar Tshiebwe, but I'm going to take the Big O and this Kentucky team to move on round one. Next up, we got Kansas State going up against Montana State. I am going to take the Wildcats here to move on here over Montana State. Montana State may be a sleeper as a 14 seed, but I just don't see them picking up a W here. I got the Wildcats moving on. Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson. Too good here in round one. I got Kansas State. Next up, we got Michigan State versus USC. And I feel like most people are taking Michigan State here in this matchup. I could see USC win there with Boogie Ellis, but Tyson Walker, Joey Hauser, Malik Hall is an X factor. If Malik Hall is playing good, Michigan State's going to win this game, and I trust Tom Izzo in March. Give me Michigan State here to move on. I think Tyson Walker plays really good defense on Boogie Ellis in this matchup as well. Tom Izzo in March. Got to pick him for first game. Next up, we got Marquette going up against the Vermont Catamounts. And I love Vermont. They have an amazing logo. Vermont, they've been making the tourney the past 2 or 3 years now. Very solid team. But Marquette is hot right now. Marquette is steaming hot, and I think they're way too much here for Vermont. Tyler Kolek has been balling. Cam Jones has been lighting it up from the three-point line. Iggy Prosper down low. Michelle off the bench. Really like this Marquette team. They're moving on to round two. Next up, we got Purdue versus Memphis. And okay, I'm taking Memphis here. I'm taking the upset. And it happens almost every year. Like, I'm pretty sure like 7 out of the last 10 years, something like that. That's not the exact stat, but something close to that. A 1 seed has lost in the round of 32. I think it happens this year. I think it's Purdue that goes down. And DeAndre Williams has been playing really great for Memphis along with Kendrick Davis. And I think that is huge. And yeah, Zach Edey could have a day, but I think Memphis's guards with Kendrick Davis, I think they outplay the freshman guards on this Purdue team. And Braden Smith has been playing good this year in spurts, but these freshman guards, I think Kendrick Davis is going to be too much for him. Give me Memphis here to move on. Next up, we got Drake going up against Louisiana. Wait, also, kind of what it reminds me of is, like, I could see Zach Edey having a really good day and going off, maybe like 30 points, double-digit rebounds for sure, but I just feel like Memphis everywhere else could beat them, and they could let Zach Edey have a day and foul him a little bit, but still get past them. Similar to like when Iowa lost as a 2 seed with Luka Garza. Luka Garza was an amazing player that year. He went off against Oregon in the second round, who was a 7 seed. Oregon just torched them though. Okay, next up we do have Duke going up against Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. And as much as I really want to move on the Raging Cajuns to the Sweet 16, Duke is a hot team. Duke is a hot team right now, and I got them moving on. I mean, Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, I think that they could be good down the stretch. Dariq Whitehead has actually been shooting really well from the three-point line. He could be an X factor in this game as well. Duke moves on to the Sweet 16, first year under head coach John Shire. Next up, we do have Kentucky going up against Kansas State in our 6 versus 3 matchup, and I'm going to go with Kentucky here in this one because I feel like Kansas State is vulnerable to lose against some really good bigs, and I feel that way about, a good amount of Big 12 teams, and that's just because the Big 12 has a lot of really good guard play and a lot of star guards in that league, but not a lot of really good big men play. And really, Texas is the only team that has really good bigs, in my opinion, in the Big 12. KJ Adams on Kansas is really good, but, he's a little bit undersized at the center position. He makes up for that with some great athleticism, and they also have some really good forwards. So I think Kansas is okay for not having a good big man, but Texas is really the only team in the Big 12 that I see having a really good front court. But Kentucky, I feel like Oscar Tshiebwe, he can have a day against Kansas State, and I also feel like guys like Kassan Wallace, Wheeler, if Wheeler's back, that is huge as well. I could see Kentucky going on a little bit of a run here. I'm going to move on the Wildcats here in this one. Next up, we do have Michigan State going up against Marquette here in this matchup, and I could see Michigan State pulling off this win. Tyson Walker on Tyler Kolek. That is a very good matchup. Both of those players play very good defense. It's tough. This one is tough because I kind of want to pick the upset here with Michigan State over Marquette. I could see it happening, but I'm going to hold myself back on it a little bit. I am going to go with Marquette here to move on because even though Joey Hauser is really good, he's going to have guys like Iggy on him who could play some really good defense. I'm going to go with Marquette here. I feel like they could lock up the X factor for Michigan State, which is Malik Hall. I feel like they could lock him up. Give me Marquette here to move on. Next up, we do have Memphis versus Duke in the Sweet 16. Winner is heading to the Elite 8. And I am going to go with Duke here in this matchup to move on. Both these teams are really hot. Both these teams won their conference tournament. And I really like Derek Lively's defense in the paint. I feel like that is going to be huge against a guy like DeAndre Williams. I really like Kyle Filipowski's game. I think he could have a big day in this one. Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor going to be able to have some length. At least Tyrese Proctor going to be able to have some length defensively on Kendrick Davis. Give me Duke to get past Memphis here in this one and make it to the Elite 8. Next up, we do have Kentucky going up against Marquette here in this one, and I am going to go with Kentucky. I'm going to go with Kentucky to keep dancing. I feel like Kentucky is a solid sleeper as a 6 seed here, and I have them moving on past Marquette. Tyler Kolek is going to be playing great. I feel like Kentucky could play some really good defense on guys like Cam Jones. If they can, hold Tyler Kolek a little bit, I feel like they can hold Cam Jones. I feel like teams could hold Cam Jones. Tyler Kolek is not going to be easy to hold, but he could have a day and Kentucky could still win. I like guys like Jacob Toppin and Oscar Tshiebwe over Iggy and Prosper there on Marquette. So I'm liking Kentucky's front court. I also like Reeves. Reeves could go off in this game for Kentucky, and that could be a big X factor in this game. Give me Kentucky to defeat Marquette here and move on to the Elite 8. So we have a blue blood battle in the Elite 8 between Duke and Kentucky. And a fun matchup, especially in that front court. I've been talking about both of these teams' front courts: Derek Lively and Filipowski, Jacob Toppin, Oscar Shibwe. I like the guard play of Kentucky a little bit more, especially if Shavir Wheeler is back. Then you have him, you have Reeves who could go off, you have Kassan Wallace. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Kentucky lately. I'm going to pick Kentucky over Duke here in this matchup. This would be a classic, another Duke-Kentucky classic down to the wire. Give me Kentucky here to move on to the Final Four. Next up, we have our last region, our West region. We do have Kansas defeating Howard. Easy pick there, right? Defending national champions make it to the round of 32. Next up, we do have Arkansas going up against Illinois in our 8-9 matchup. And like I said, both these teams I feel like have been a little bit overseeded. I do think Illinois and Arkansas both have potential. Illinois has the better forwards, right, with Matt Mayer and Terrence Shannon Jr. Arkansas has the better guard play in Anthony Black and Nick Smith Jr. Ricky Council, the fourth. I think Ricky Council has a massive day. I think Nick Smith Jr. has a massive day. And Illinois just does not have the guards to compete with Arkansas, in my opinion. And I think guys like the Mitchell brothers, Jordan Walsh, they can play some really good defense on guys like Terrence Shannon Jr. I could see Matt Mayer going off. If Matt Mayer goes off, I could see Illinois win this game. And also Coleman Hawkins. Coleman Hawkins is a do-it-all type of guy at the power forward position. If Coleman Hawkins and Matt Mayer are playing great and Terrence Shannon Jr. can get going, that's how Illinois can win this game. But I'm going to trust Arkansas's defense to kind of slow them down. Next up, we do have St. Mary's going up against VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. And I am going to pick this upset. And this is my second 12 over 5. I think it's right to pick two 12 over 5s, or at least one. I'm picking 2, and I like VCU over St. Mary's here in this matchup. Sort of. Like, I'm not sold on this happening because I really do like St. Mary's. I like Logan Johnson. I like Aiden Mahaney there for the Gales. But I feel like we're going to see one of the more quote-unquote obvious 12 over 5s with Oral Roberts or Charleston. I picked Charleston. And then we're going to pick and then I feel like one of the not so obvious or not so popular 12 over 5 picks are going to happen in VCU over St. Mary's or with Drake over Miami. I got VCU over St. Mary's in a absolute bracket buster in the West region. Give me VCU here to move on. Next up, we do have UConn versus Iona in our 4 versus 13 matchup. I got UConn here moving on in this one past Iona, the Fighting Rick Pitino's. Rick Pitino can go on and take the St. John's job after he loses first round. Next up, we do have TCU versus either Arizona State or Nevada. I think I like Nevada to win that matchup, honestly. I like Nevada to win that matchup, and I am going to take Nevada to defeat TCU. And I like Mike Miles. I like Damian Ball. I do not like Jamie Dixon. I think he's not that great of a head coach. And because of that, because he, said something Eddie Lampkin did not like, Eddie Lampkin is no longer on that team, and that is a big miss for this TCU team. I could see TCU go on a little bit of a deep run this year, but with no Eddie Lampkin, I don't know. I'm going to pick the upset here. I'm going to take Nevada to defeat Arizona State and then go on and defeat TCU. Next up, we got Gonzaga as our 3 seed going up against Grand Canyon as our 14 seed. I'm going to take Gonzaga here in this one. Gonzaga, Drew Timme. I feel like Drew Timme is going to be on a tear in this tournament. He's got experience in the tourney. Guys like Hickman, guys like Strother, they can get going as well. Gonzaga, underrated guard play there. Malachi Smith off the bench. He made the tourney last year with Chattanooga. He was the best player on that team. He's now 6th man for this Zaga team, and he is a baller. Next up, we do have Northwestern as our 7 seed going up against Boise State as our 10 seed. And I am going to go with Boo Buie in this really good Northwestern team to get a win in March. I do really like this Boise State team. I just don't know if they can get a win in March this year. I picked them last year over Memphis. Very disappointed to see that they couldn't get their first ever March Madness win. And of course, because I'm not picking them this year, they probably will get their first March Madness win. So I do really want to see Boise State get a win. Northwestern, very solid team, though. They have a very good defense, especially in their front court. I feel like it's going to be tough for Boise. I'm taking Northwestern here to move on. Next up, we do have UCLA as our 2 seed going up against UNC Asheville as our 15 seed. Out of all the 15 seeds, I like UNC Asheville the most in their matchup. I mean, I like Colgate. I just don't like them to defeat Texas. I don't think they'll beat Texas. Out of all the 15 twos, if one were to happen, I would say it would be UNC Asheville over UCLA. I don't see it happening, though. I am rocking the UCLA jersey today. Can't pick them to lose against the 15. If I were to make like an upset bracket, I would take UNC Asheville, but I am going to take UCLA here in this one. Next up, we do have Kansas going up against Arkansas here in this matchup, and a lot of people are saying, you know, Arkansas a big-time sleeper, and once upon a time, I was on that train heavily. I was on Arkansas as a sleeper to make the Final Four. I was all about it, man. I was all about it, but the way that they have been playing recently, I can't do it. I can't take them over Kansas. And yeah, Kansas has lost to Texas pretty bad a couple of times, but Arkansas is no Texas. I'll just say that. And Arkansas, I feel like they do match up really well against Kansas, but like matchup wise, they match up good, but Kansas is also better in those matchups, if that makes sense. So I am going to take Kansas here to move on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we do have VCU going up against UConn. VCU is not moving on any further. Give me UConn here to move on in this one. Then we got Nevada versus Gonzaga here in our 11 versus 3 matchup, and I got Gonzaga. I think Drew Timme is going to be on a tear this tournament for at least the first 2 rounds. He is going to go off in the first weekend of March Madness. Give me Gonzaga to keep dancing here in this one. Next up, we do have Northwestern versus UCLA, and man, I am rocking the UCLA jersey and all. I am. But I am going to pick this upset. I am going to take Northwestern to go on a little bit of a run here in this tourney and upset UCLA. Like I said, Northwestern has some really good defense, and they also have a really good quad 1 record. I feel like they could be a sleeper here to go on a little bit of a run. I got them going all the way here to the Sweet 16 and beating UCLA. I also think that the injury of Jalen Clark on UCLA does hurt them a lot. I think Hawkes, he is going to go off in this game. Tiger Campbell, a veteran point guard, he's going to have Boo Buie on him. Boo Buie wins that matchup scoring-wise, and I'm going to take Northwestern and their really good defense to be able to get enough stops on UCLA and pull off that upset. Bold pick there, but give me Northwestern. Next up, we got Kansas going up against UConn here in a 1 versus 4 matchup. I got UConn here defeating Kansas. The defending champions go out in the Sweet 16, and I just really like the matchup here for UConn. I think Sanogo, Klingon, 2 really good bigs, going to be guarded by the sophomore KJ Adams, who, like I mentioned earlier, is a little bit undersized at the center position. So I feel like, you know, they could bring in that Edu guy there for Kansas. I still think UConn can dominate in the front court, and I also really, really like UConn's guards, man. I really like Andre Jackson Jr.'s defense, and he's going to be guarding Jalen Wilson. I feel like he could not lock him up, but slow him down a little bit as well. And that could get Andre Jackson Jr. on his game a little bit. I just like the way that these teams match up here in this one. And Jordan Hawkins is going to be shooting lights out. Jordan Hawkins could take over this tourney. Give me UConn to move on to the Elite Eight. Next up, we do have Gonzaga going up against Northwestern in a 3-7 matchup. I am going to take Gonzaga here in this one. Oh, actually, the more I think about it, like I've been saying, Northwestern plays some really good defense in the front court. Like, they beat Purdue. Like, they locked up Zach Edey. Like, I feel like they could lock up Drew Timme here in this matchup. Do we trust Gonzaga's guards here to get them past Northwestern and get this win? That's the only thing. I think I'm going to do it. I am going to trust Gonzaga here to get past Northwestern, but honestly, that's kind of a good matchup there for Northwestern. I could see it happening. I could see them getting to the Elite Eight. I am going to go with Gonzaga here to move on. I feel like even though Northwestern's defense is really good, Drew Timme is just on a mission, man. And I think guys like Strother, Hickman, and Malachi Smith, they could have days. And yeah, I got Gonzaga moving on here to the Elite Eight. So, battle for our Final Four spots here out of the West region. We do have UConn as our 4 going up against Gonzaga as our 3, and Drew Timme going up against like Caravan. You're gonna have Sanogo Klingon going up against the backup center there for Gonzaga, and I think his name is Gray. He's like 7-foot freshman, a beast, man. Him on Klingon would be an absolute treat to watch. I'm not gonna lie, but I do like UConn. I do like UConn in this matchup to advance to the Final Four. Again, I think if Andre Jackson Jr. and Jordan Hawkins are playing at their peak play, and Tristan Newton as well, look out, this UConn team could do some damage in March Madness. So this is what our Final Four is looking like. We got Arizona versus Kentucky in our first matchup, and we do have Houston versus UConn in our other matchup. So a 2 seed, 6 seed, 1 seed, and a 4 seed. I like the way that this has turned out. And let's start off with our left game here, again, with Arizona versus Kentucky in this matchup. Very fun one. I think it's right that Oscar Tshiebwe gets his team to the Final Four, especially with the way that they have actually started to play together this season. And however, it is going to end here in the Final Four. I am going to take Arizona here to move on to the Natty and make it to the championship game. I just think Turbellis and Ballo, that's a tough matchup there for guys like Toppin and Tshiebwe. I've been talking up Toppin and Tshiebwe, but they met their match right there with Arizona. They have, and it could be the guard play, like Reeves versus Krista. That could be a matchup there. Like who's going to be the better shooter in that matchup? It could be interesting for sure. But I am going to take Arizona here to move on to the Natty. Then we have Houston going up against UConn here in our 1 versus 4 matchup, and this one could go down to the wire. I do like Houston in this one. I like their defense. In this one, I think Marcus Sasser, Jamal Shed have really good games in this one. I could see Jarris Walker being able to stretch out the floor a little bit, trying to take some of those really good bigs for UConn out of the paint. And I like Houston here to move on in this one. I got Houston versus Arizona here in my national championship game. And I am going to have Houston win it all this season. And just letting you guys know, I am on a 2-year streak as far as picking who wins the national championship. 2021, I picked Baylor. 2022, I picked Kansas. This year, I got Houston as my national champion. We'll see if I can extend that streak to 3 years or if I'm completely wrong. Who knows? But I do have Houston winning this one. Final Four most outstanding player. Give me... Man, I could go someone a little bit different. Ooh, who do I want it to be? I'll go with Jamal Shed. Jamal Shed has a big day in the Final Four games. Give me him as my Final Four outstanding player, because why not? And the score, I'm going to go a little bit higher scoring, actually. Actually, I feel like Most of the time in national championship games, the nerves can get to teams. I don't feel like it will be that high scoring, but both these teams score. Both these teams can score. I'm going to go 72 Houston, 69 for the memes for Arizona. Houston is my national champion for 2023. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys join my group. I will be closing the group soon, so make sure you guys get in there. Dannyology space TC. If you search in the groups, also link in the description. We will be live tonight making more brackets. We're going to be doing an all-day stream on Thursday, watching all the day one games for the round of 64. The first game is WVU versus Maryland. That's my favorite team, so it's going to be lit in there right off the start of that stream. And yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this video. A lot more college basketball March Madness coverage here on the channel, so make sure you guys subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.